It's a miracle. I lived in active addiction, serious and persistent mental health, law enforcement intervention for 40 years. And that is a devastating place to be.
"21% of the inmates in our jail have some level of diagnosed mental illness. Even more dramatic than that, 60% have been in and out of our jail 6 or more times."
People look at what it costs for us to run our jail, $30 million in our county for about 1,000 inmates. We all need to be working towards lowering the amount of people in our jails, lowering the amount of people that are out there being arrested inappropriately. And it's a huge, huge crisis for our country today.
So our criminal justice system isn't as smart as it should be. It's not keeping us as safe as it should be. It is not as fair as it should be. Mass incarceration makes our country worse off, and we need to do something about it.
So good afternoon, everyone. What we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a lightning panel. Enough of these lightning talks. We're going to do a lightning panel. So we're going to move very quickly to get through this thing. So we've heard a lot about Police Data Initiative and a little bit about the Data-Driven Justice Initiative. So Dave, help them understand, what is this Data-Driven Justice Initiative? What is it?
Thanks for asking, Roy. So I had no idea you were going to ask that question.
No, you had no idea.
So the president identified criminal justice reform and reentry as one of his top priorities for his last year in office. And the Police Data Initiative and the Data-Driven Justice Initiative are really the two signature place-based initiatives associated with that last year priority. And DDJ focuses on the challenge of jails. So over 11 million people each year go through our local jail system. That's about 19 times as many people who go through prison. So it's the largest source of incarceration in the United States. And what we know is that there's a lot of very unnecessary incarceration. In particular, our jail challenge is often not a criminal justice challenge. It's a poverty challenge. It's a mental health challenge. And so through DDJ, we've identified, working with counties across the country, including Salt Lake, two key populations that are overrepresented.
What are those populations?
So those populations are the mental health population, who are often unstably housed, maybe self-medicating with substances, and
jails don't help those. Jails don't help that population.
Surprisingly, they're a little vulnerable in jails,
okay.
And it's not getting their situation much better.
Okay, and what's the second population?
The other population is folks who are held pre-trial. So our own DOJ numbers are that 60% of the population in our jails, 60% on any given day, are in jail pre-trial, which means they haven't been convicted. And they are being held not because they're a risk to the community or because they're a risk at flight, but because they just can't pay bail. So they're effectively in jail because they're poor.
And is this cheap?
You know what? It's really, really expensive.
Okay.
Tens of billions of dollars. And so through DDJ, jurisdictions are coming together as a coalition of the willing to act on evidence-based, data-driven solutions to reduce unnecessary incarceration.
So how many jurisdictions have decided to join this?
That's a great question. The answer
where
is...
did it come from? I don't know.
Yeah. So over 130 jurisdictions in the United States have joined this. Big cities, small counties, including right here in Santa Clara, which is a large county. It is really remarkable. So
how many people
90 million people live now in White House data-driven justice jurisdictions. So it's really remarkable. And what these jurisdictions are committing to do is just three things. One, link data across systems to better understand who their high-cost superutilizers are, who are in and out of jail, in and out of an emergency room, in and out of shelters. That data is available, it can be linked, and we can find the high-cost folks and get out ahead of the problem.
Okay. So
that's
Fraser,
the core.
So Fraser Nelson, you're from Salt Lake City, right? Locking up all these people costs a lot of money, doesn't make any sense, so why do you do it?
I don't know why we do it, and we have to stop doing it.
Okay, so how are you going to stop doing it?
Well, one thing I think that's important to understand is I actually don't like the word superutilizer at all. I prefer people that we continue to fail over and over again. These are people, but I love you guys. And by the way, as long as I have the floor, I would like to thank both of these gentlemen and everyone else at the White House for their last 8 years of service and all the work that you've done for our community.
A lot of you. Thank you.
So I think one of the, we've talked a lot about data, and and it seemed to me somewhere along this conversation we lost the word people. And to me, the question is, how do we provide the right level of service to the right people at the right time for the right length of time? Because if people, like in our case, we went from looking at a group of 343,000 people who were using our mental health services, our substance abuse services, and our jail services. And those people, there were 1,800 of them who were in all three systems frequently. That means that there are almost 2,000 citizens in my small county, Salt Lake County, that we are just really not helping. In fact, we're probably harming those individuals.
And how much is those people costing your county?
I don't really have a good answer for that, but I can tell you that their lives are being harmed, and that's what's important to me.
And just their lives or other people's
And
lives?
their families' lives, and to say nothing of all the systems and the failure that we feel as a society. And you might have seen the Jon Stewart episode where Salt Lake County solved chronic homelessness. And one of the reasons we solved it, although I can tell you that we haven't, but one of the reasons we actually say we solved it is we took what seemed like an enormous problem and we cut it down to a group of people we could actually identify. And I think that's what this data-driven justice initiative has allowed us to do, is to go from, oh my God, like we can't possibly get our arms around this, to how can we possibly be doing a worse job for these 1,800 people? Let's figure out programs, so in our case it's Pay for Success and a few other initiatives, that are really targeting the people that we are failing. We are failing them.
So Dave, if 1/3 of the population is in fact part of DTJ, that means, according to my math, 2/3 are not.
Give them a PhD.
What's wrong with those 2/3? What are the excuses that you hear when you say, why aren't you joining this thing? Why aren't you doing this thing? It's going to save you money. What are the excuses you hear?
You know what? That's a terrific question. And the fact is, we don't hear much in the way of excuses. It's some work at the White House to bring these organizations on board, communities on board. But when we approach a county executive or a sheriff and say, hey, we think you might be struggling with this problem, first their answer is, yeah, we are. It's really hard on people. It's really hard. It's really high costs. And our police aren't well equipped to deal with this population. We want a solution that works. We know that preventive solutions can get better results and save money. So why haven't the other 2/3 joined? There's 3,100 counties in the United States and 2 months left in the administration, but we're going to keep on going. I'd be interested in your opinion on why it might be hard for some jurisdictions to join.
Well, I'm the moderator. I get to ask questions. You may have forgotten that.
I have an opinion about that.
Help us, okay, because we obviously don't know.
So counties, in Salt Lake County, I'm the director of data and innovation. I'm the director of the Office of Data and Innovation, which is me. We don't have any technologists. We don't have any data scientists. We don't, our IT department, we joke and say we'll have the technology of yesterday, tomorrow. I mean, we really don't have the capacity. So fortunately, we teamed up with the University of Chicago Data Science and Social Good folks to help us pull together all these data and to look at, millions and millions and millions of lines and rows to come up with the matching. A lot of counties like mine simply don't have the capacity. So when you ask, oh, do you want to come on and really look at this problem, we're embarrassed to say, we may have the data, but we can't get at it. We don't know, we're not storing it in a way that we can get at it, and we don't have the staff to actually look at it. So we're going to look at a problem and then say, oh, great, now we know we have this problem, but we can't do anything about it, we can't understand it. So I think that might be one barrier, just simple capacity.
Okay, we're glad we have you, Fraser, because we have no idea why we're up here exactly.
Thank you.
But Dave, you must be giving all these people tons of federal dollars because that's the only way you would ever get 100 million people covered. Isn't that what you're doing?
You know, you might think that's the case, but you're wrong again, Roy.
Okay, again, how so?
Can we turn this to a Laurel and Hardy?
Yes, go ahead. How so?
Well,
They don't know who Laurel and Hardy are,
that's a
Dave.
fair point.
So,
The federal government doesn't have a lot of, or virtually any, jurisdiction over jails, and we have a hard time getting Congress lately to pay for a lot of the things that we think are high priorities. This is a coalition of the willing. There are a few small TA grants from HUD and the Corporation for National Service Social Innovation Fund and others that are supporting this, but this is primarily a group of jurisdictions who are saying we need to make a change, and it's incredibly nonpartisan, which we think makes a really important statement, especially as we think about common ground solutions ahead. And what's been amazing is that there's been many private sector commitments from nonprofits, from foundations, and also from the tech sector. So we have a tech consortium that includes Palantir, and it's led by Amazon Web Services, and Code for America is part of it, and the University of Chicago, and many other private sector organizations who are stepping up and saying, we're gonna help jurisdictions get tomorrow's technology today rather than yesterday's tomorrow. And so one minor call to action is if anyone in this room is interested in helping these jurisdictions go faster, further, please let us know.
so Fraser, specifically, I mean, you got this ginormous office with all these people working for you. What would you want these people to do to help you? Because you seem to have it all.
Right in the palm of my hand is where I have it. What I would want you to do is think about how, particularly from the academic side, how you could work with your local jurisdiction. I mean, in every county government and every city government, there's a Fraser Nelson who sits every day at her desk saying, how did I end up in government? This is a really slow process, and the first word I hear is no, generally speaking. The other thing I would say is data is not enough. We had to supplement, and we were intentionally about supplementing the work we did with the data-driven justice with meetings with people who have been in jail, people who have been homeless, people who have active substance abuse and mental health issues. Because when I think about how to better serve those 2,000 people, I need to ask them where we failed. And I want to make sure that that's a piece that we don't lose sight of. And so if you have skills in social psychology and leading focus groups, ethnographics, that's where county governments, city governments, again, could really use some assistance. We were able to use some grad students and some students to pull those focus groups together, and we also paid the people who attended. So a $10 gift card at the grocery store is a way of saying, we value your time. And so grant money to help support those kinds of things, because getting gift cards from county government is a little like, what? Why would you pay homeless people to ask them what they think? To which my response is, of course, well, why would you not if you're asking if you want to help them or help work with them? So those kinds of things are really important.
So Dave, I know the next administration has begged you to stay on, but despite that, you've decided that you're probably going to leave. What happens to the Data-Driven Justice Initiative when you walk out the door?
Thankfully, there's an infrastructure in place. There is a career staff level interagency task force, and the technology consortium is going to keep going, and it's actually growing. So we've gotten more and more commitments on that. And the Arnold Foundation, which has been here, is funding some of our friends and our colleagues, the Heart and Soul, Lynn Overman of the initiative, to keep going and working with jurisdictions and the technology partners to make this happen. And NACO, the National Association of Counties, is also a backbone partner that is going to keep the counties together, keep the conversation going, because so much of this is when Fraser solves a problem, someone in another county somewhere else has no idea. So that conversation going And scouting and scaling, as Megan would say, is incredibly important, and NACO's going to be leading that.
And we're actually going to be meeting in January in Salt Lake at the Winter Innovation Summit. So all the DDJ communities are invited to come to our summit. And it's also tied up with Sundance, so there's film premieres. And then on Friday, we all go skiing.
Who doesn't like skiing?
Who doesn't like that? Yeah.
So let me just make sure I'm summarizing this correctly. So you're an idiot if you're not part of DDJ because it saves money and it helps people, and you can be a lone person, the only data person in your entire state, and you can run this thing. Do I understand what we just had today?
Yes.
All right. Please join DDJ. And Alice, you from Palantir, the stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.